Hey, yo, Pro Wrestling Podcast listeners, help us out and click subscribe to show your support. If you are a member of YouTube, make sure you enable notifications so you know every time the Pro Wrestling Podcast goes live with another episode. While you're at it, if you are sick and tired of spending $60 to $100 for the latest and greatest wrestling video game every single year, stop immediately and go to Wrestler Unstoppable, available exclusively through Facebook, where you can create your own wrestler, sign contracts, get involved in storylines, headline pay-per-views, even build your own corporation, all included in Wrestler Unstoppable, available now to all Facebook users, totally free. And if you go there right now, join Universal Wrestling Evolution, my corporation, for our own version of the G1 Climax. If you were all in for September 1st, make sure you check out the all-in merchandise. You can find it by going to frowrestling.com and clicking on the icons in the middle of the page. Get your all-in merchandise ahead of the show. Should be an amazing lineup, and you want to be a part of it. Looking your best in your all-in gear. If you want to become a member of the Pro Wrestling Podcast family, you want your name in the shout-outs like my good buddy Harold in St. Louis, then check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/Pro Wrestling Podcast and sign up today. Don't forget, we have loyalty rewards. Any $25 contributor to our Patreon page will co-host an episode of Going Live, and our $10 a month contributors can get entered into a drawing for one winner to also co-host an episode of Going Live with me. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Going Live. And I gotta tell you, don't forget, we've got that all-time dream match tournament. The tournament championship round is live now. You can vote in the final. I'm not going to tell you who's in the final round. You guys did an amazing job throughout this entire tournament, and I'm really looking forward to see who you crown as your winner of the all-time dream match tournament. We didn't have very many matches at all in the whole tournament that have ever actually happened. That's really hard to do. There was every dream match you could possibly think of probably happened in the tournament, and you guys voted in a great way, and really the results were fantastic. So I'm excited for you guys to check that out. If you have questions, comments, concerns, you want to get involved in the show in any way, shape, or form, there's two ways you can do that. One, go to the Pro Wrestling Sound Off line at 267-642-1160 all week long, where you can give us your questions, your comments, your concerns, anything you want us to cover. If you have some obscure wrestling thing you want me to look into, give it to me there. It's a talk to text service. You talk, it texts me your message, and we can get your information into the show as well. Make sure you give me your name in your message so I can give you credit for your questions on the show. Or if you want to chime in while we're live, use the chat feature in whatever streaming service you're using. It should send it directly to me, especially if you're using Spreaker.com to get there, and I can comment directly to you, and again, give you the kudos for calling into the show. Don't forget, if you've never been a follower of the Pro Wrestling Podcast in the past, go to frowrestling.com, F-R-O wrestling.com, where you can preview everything, all the topics that come to our episodes. It's a great way for you to come up with the questions, whatever it is that you want to ask ahead of our shows. And that way we can give you guys an opportunity to have time to really put me on a spot. Give me some stuff to talk about that you really want me to go over. This episode, we're going to focus. There is a lot of news. May run a little long this episode, but that's okay. I don't get enough time to talk to you guys anyway, so I'm loving the fact that we've got a lot to talk about. We are going to close the show, the primary topic of this show, with the WWE Extreme Rules, the last-minute betting odds, and our predictions for the show. But along the way, there is a ton to talk to. We'll start at the bottom of my list and work our way up to the top. For anybody who's been on ProWrestling.com, you've seen what's there already. There is so much going on this week. So let's start with Tessa Blanchard. She was supposed to go to WWE back in November, December last year. It didn't happen for one reason or another. WWE did not bring her in. There's been reports that she was very upset about that. Really had some confusion as to why they wouldn't bring her on board with their company. And then what ends up happening is she joins Impact Wrestling. It was a short-term agreement, but it was announced this week Tessa Blanchard has signed a long-term deal with Impact Wrestling. Curious that her fiancé, Ricochet, with WWE and their NXT brand, doing very well. It's interesting to me that she would take a long-term deal when there is so much possibility in the women's division in WWE right now, where had she had maybe some more patience, maybe she would have gotten in there. But in the meantime, she is an instant major boost to the Impact Wrestling Knockouts division. Congratulations to Tessa Blanchard. I hope she does extremely well there. She deserves it. She's been working a long time, and she's an incredible, incredible talent. Speaking of Impact Wrestling stars, former Impact star James Storm, he says this week he's ready for the full-time WWE schedule. He would be excited to get back together with Bobby Roode. To be perfectly honest with you, I think they have completely botched bringing Bobby Roode to the main roster, and I think bringing James Storm in and allowing him to pair up with Bobby Roode once again, they had so much chemistry in Impact Wrestling, it would really bolster WWE's tag team division, and it gives Bobby Roode something of substance and value to do. I know he doesn't want to be typecast as a tag team wrestler, but let's face it. He's held the United States Championship. He's been a world champion in Impact Wrestling. He's held several singles titles. I think at this point, the card is so heavily stacked with talent, it's going to be really hard for him to break into the world title picture. And of course, he could go for the Intercontinental Championship, but at this point in time, I don't know that that's the in the cards anytime soon. So this would be a great way. Bring James Storm in, let he and Bobby Roode get back together and really tear up the tag team division. Daniel Bryan, speaking of WWE superstars, had some interesting comments this week about WWE's creative team. So he was talking this week, doing an interview, and he was put on the spot talking about whether or not WWE Creative actually listens to his suggestions about what to do with his character. And he was very upfront that, like, he'll see something that's supposed to be said in a promo or something that's supposed to happen in the ring that just doesn't always make sense to him, and he'll make suggestions, and they'll totally ignore everything he said, and they'll go to the ring and do something that he knows fundamentally as a great wrestler it's just not going to work, but they don't want to shift course and listen to his input. That's really frustrating because Daniel Bryan's not just some schmo off the street. He's one of the biggest draws in the wrestling world right now, arguably one of the best wrestlers in the world right now, and you would think that WWE Creative, who, if you've ever gone to their corporate website, you want to see the job description for these creative writers. You have to have multiple years experience as a television soap opera storyline writer. You have to have all this stuff about media, and there's very little to do with professional wrestling. Well, I understand that you need to be able to tell stories and things of that nature, and that might be where the soap opera requirement comes in, but the reality is, some of the best wrestling in the world right now comes from companies that don't have all those long, drawn-out stories. New Japan Pro Wrestling, Ring of Honor, Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, who had a killer show in the last couple days, House of Hardcore, even I would go so far as to say Lucha Underground, which does have storylines, but they're all insane. The reality is you don't always have to have a great storyline to have a great product. That people, no matter how much we call it sports entertainment, and no matter how much we know it's predetermined who's going to win, people still want to have the wolf pulled over their eyes. They want to expect it to look as authentic as possible, and WWE's creative team is not very good at that. They make everything look hokey, it all looks cartoonish, and it doesn't come off as legit. Heck, the Bludgeon Brothers are a phenomenal tag team, but is anybody really buying a gimmick of two guys who look like their persona should have come from like the mountains of like Scandinavia, and they're carrying big hammers around? That's ludicrous. WWE chooses to go that route instead of giving you something that makes common sense. Look, the Guerrillas of Destiny look just every bit as tough and barbaric as the WWE SmackDown Tag Team Champions do. You know, the Bludgeon Brothers. But they look legit. The Bludgeon Brothers look like a cartoon character. So I'm just saying, like, with Daniel Bryan, with all his experience, you would think WWE Creative could start to take some of that into account and say, hey, man, why are our ratings down year after year after year? And here's why. Because we don't put out a good product. Now, people, I've gotten into this debate repeatedly online with people. WWE always reports these huge earnings and they make so much money. I get it. I'm not saying they're not successful businessmen, but what I'm saying is that you have to understand the long-term success of your company. Yes, you can continue to branch out in other countries around the world, which is helping subsidize their profitability. You can continue to bring in talent from around the world and showcase new stars that you're bringing in from other promotions, and you'll get a pop because people are excited to see what these outsiders do in your company. But what you can't do is afford to continue to lose viewers because you don't know how to book your talent. Right now, we haven't seen Sheamus and Cesaro on television in weeks. It's because creative has nothing for them. How can that be? We haven't seen the Authors of Pain in anything meaningful until a week ago, and they were brought up right after WrestleMania. That doesn't make sense. Rework the creative team, put some wrestling fans on the creative team, and you may actually put out a product that people want to see, much like New Japan, Ring of Honor, etc., etc. Speaking of somebody who could really turn things around, now he's not willing to do that, but as an on-screen talent, Eric Bischoff said this week on his show that he's open to a WWE return. He would like to be a manager. He'd like to manage somebody as a heel manager, kind of like a Paul Heyman-esque character, and see if he can make that worthwhile. And he said he's definitely open to doing that. I think at this stage of his career, if you take a look at Eric Bischoff, he's clearly not the youngest person in the world anymore, but he still has a great mind for business. And he's been successful in many other ventures. The guy is still a multi-millionaire. If he can contribute in some way, and if he's open to it, if I'm WWE, I'm making the deal. That's just my opinion. Speaking of WWE making deals, there's word out this week, it was big news, that WWE is planning to possibly hold 2 WrestleMania-level events. One, the traditional WrestleMania, and the other would be a WrestleMania on a foreign soil, and this would take place starting in 2020. With the success of the Greatest Royal Rumble event, they think that they could pull off WrestleManias multiple times a year. I'll be honest with you, I don't know why they haven't done this a long time ago. I don't need a 8-hour show every month. But if you gave me one in, say, April and one again 6 months later, I'm okay with that. I think that would be very successful. And if you did one outside of the United States, you appeal to a much broader audience, and you give talents that are in places like Japan, like South America, like Australia, like Africa, you give them a reason to want to come to your company because they feel like they're going to get better international exposure. Absolutely, I'm in favor of doing 2 WrestleManias. The problem I see is that they need to be very careful with what they put on their other pay-per-views. We have too many talents who are never on the shows. Bobby Roode's not on this next pay-per-view, Extreme Rules tomorrow. There's multiple talents who aren't on the thing. I actually saw somebody who said that they should have Kurt Hawkins come out, and have Brock Lesnar come out and trash talk, and have Kurt Hawkins come out and beat him in a squash match to send Brock out and give the title to Kurt Hawkins. No thank you. Just had to throw that in there. But speaking of championships, I don't want to talk about the Universal title because we haven't seen that on television forever. But another one we haven't seen in a long time but is out there for you to own is a piece of TNA wrestling history. They brought out the King of the Mountain Championship. It evolved a couple times, became a Legends title, a television championship, but they kept using the same belt. That championship belt was one of the most costly to make in any place in the world. Tons of gemstones, tons of gold, beautiful design, the red leather plate, leather backing, and you can own that for $17,500. It is up for sale on Reddit. You can find the link. What an incredible thing to own. It's got to be the ugliest belt I've ever seen in my life, but it's a piece of wrestling history. It's been held by some of the best in the business, Booker T, AJ Styles, Abyss, like a whole host of people, Jeff Jarrett, like all those guys have held this belt, and it would be nice to see a really true diehard wrestling fan get their hands on this. What I fear is going to happen is one of these knuckleheads is going to pop in there who's already got 15 belts from historical wrestling wrestlers and is just going to gobble up another one. We saw that angle in Impact Wrestling where they pulled out the Bruno Sammartino World Championship and the NWA Championship belt, and they were pulling out all these championships. I wouldn't be surprised if he bought this one too. But if you want a piece of TNA history, check out Reddit, find that link, and go ahead and buy yourself the King of the Mountain /Television /Legends Championship. We all saw this week that D'Angelo Williams returned to Impact Wrestling. I think this is an interesting move. Last time he was there, he looked great in the ring. I mean, there's anybody who watched it, he looked amazing against Eli Drake. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. But he came back this week. He got jumped by Austin Aries, and you've just got this feeling he looks like such a natural in the ring. I think that there's a lot of potential there should he choose to make a move into wrestling. I understand the guy is pretty much retired from football now. He's like 33, 34 years old. In football terms, that's old. In wrestling, that's like just beginning to get close to hitting your stride. I would love to see him go into a full-time program, really get some experience, and he could become a real viable homegrown talent for Impact Wrestling, something they sorely need. They haven't had a lot of those in the last couple years. AJ Styles, Christopher Daniels, Samoa Joe, not that they didn't have careers prior to Impact Wrestling, but certainly didn't experience all the same successes they did, and exposure is the big thing with the popularity and the widespread appeal of Impact Wrestling back in the day that they could have had. So it would be nice to see him get into a program and really have a place on the Impact Wrestling roster. He could really help bolster their core. But definitely curious. I'm going to keep my eye on that because it doesn't sound like he's going back to the NFL. I don't see any teams out there dying to sign D'Angelo Williams, even though the last time he played for the Steelers, I believe, and he did very well in place of Le'Veon Bell when he was out for suspension. But it would be very curious to see if he becomes a full-time talent because I think he has a lot to offer. The NWA World Heavyweight Championship, to me, you guys, anybody who tuned in and listened to the interview we did with Nick Aldis a few months ago, you know I have a huge, deep appreciation for the NWA Championship. I follow this conquest of the gold that Nick Aldis has been doing for several months now. He's defended that championship over 30 times, multiple continents, all over the world. I understand they don't have a major television deal. I understand Championship Wrestling from Hollywood is not a huge distributed show and that it's not anywhere close to Impact Wrestling, Ring of Honor, Lucha Underground, New Japan Pro Wrestling, WWE. I get it. But I think when it comes to putting on a great show, no matter who you're in the ring with, Nick Aldis is doing a great job. And he's taken that title everywhere. They were in Australia last night for House of Hardcore. He was defending the title. And they're saying that for Honor for All, the Ring of Honor super show that's coming up, that the NWA Championship will be defended when Nick Aldis takes on Flip Gordon. I am a huge fan of Flip Gordon's. I think he is an incredibly talented young man, has a bright future in front of him. And I'm really hoping that, obviously, I don't expect him to win the NWA World Championship. I kind of am starting to feel like that really will happen for Cody. But, and I really don't want that to happen. But, I think it'll be interesting to see how this match with Aldis really propels Flip Gordon to that next level in the wrestling business. We're talking about people going to be defending that NWA Championship at All In. Another superstar who wants to be at All In is Matt Hardy. Conversation banter on Twitter going back and forth this week between the Young Bucks and Matt Hardy, talking about how the Eater and Deleter of Worlds would like to come and defend the WWE Raw Tag Team Championships at All In against the Young Bucks. Now, here's the bizarre thing. In the past, you'd be like, yeah, that's just not going to happen. And I still don't think it's going to happen. But when you hear comments from people like Triple H, now just follow me on this train of thought. If you really wanted to bring in Cody and Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks at the end of the year, what better way to be an ambassador of sorts and encourage them that you really do want to back them when they get to your company than to be an ambassador and let your talents go to their show. Now, I'm not telling you to let them, let the Young Bucks win the tag championship. Not at all. Quite the opposite. I actually would love to see the Young Bucks defend the IWGP Tag Team Championship as well, make it a title-for-title thing, and have Matt Hardy and Bray Wyatt win the IWGP Tag Team Championship. I think that would be fascinating. Or just not have a title match at all, just have a match. Because I think it would be good for the sport of wrestling. And I called it a sport. Yeah, somebody gave me a crap about that last week. The sport of wrestling. This is a sports exhibition. I get it, the word exhibition's in there. I know it's predetermined, but there is no sport in the world as or more athletic than wrestling. Certainly not the schedule that the wrestlers put on. I don't care what sport you're in. You don't play year-round, with the exception potentially of golf and tennis. Most sport, and those two sports don't do anything near the physicality of professional wrestling. These guys are the world-class athletes. They top everyone. That's why I'm such a diehard fan. Speaking of the World of Sport Wrestling returns July 28th, right around 2 weeks away, and that should be interesting. I saw Grotto in the promotional material. There's a lot of familiar faces from Impact Wrestling will be there. This is a relaunch of a company that was out a few years ago, went out of business, and to be perfectly honest with you, any company that has any kind of clout coming back is a good thing for professional wrestling. Not that anybody's ever going to challenge WWE. I know there was some confusion in an article I put out this week about WWE needs to fear New Japan Pro Wrestling. I don't mean that they need to fear going out of business, but what they do need to fear is that here's what's happening with WWE right now, and this is why the World Sport Wrestling is a big deal. Every pair of eyes that looks at another product and says, wow, that company has it together better than WWE. That's a problem. That's someone who may stop being a mainstream fan who wants to watch WWE and become more of an indie darling fan. And here's the thing. WWE has tens of millions of fans around the world. I get it. But what WWE doesn't have is an increasing audience. And at some point, that will become an issue. Yes, they're still profitable, but they won't stay as profitable if they continue to lose diehard fans to other promotions, New Japan, Ring of Honor, Impact Wrestling, Lucha Underground. So what I'm saying when I said that in that article, and what I'm saying here with this World of Sport Wrestling, is that WWE has to be careful. I think Triple H is smart enough to know what he needs to do, but I wonder if Vince McMahon will get out of the way to let him do it. I think that it's time for WWE to be a little more open-door-ish to other companies and really put something special out there so that their programming is must-see television. They just signed all these TV deals, and I know that's a big deal, and that's part of why they're so profitable. But the reality is you'd be even more profitable if instead of getting 2.5 to 3.5 million viewers, you were getting 6.5 to 7.5 million viewers every week. And that would bring in the kind of revenue you were getting back in the Monday Night Wars, and that's what the kind of money you should be trying to get. They talk about how WWE is all about the money grab. I believe that to a degree, but not all the way, because if you were, you'd be seeing booking and writing the way it was back in the Wars. You wouldn't be seeing the way they book it now, because this is miserable. So definitely something to keep an eye on. Something I'm not going to be keeping an eye on, but I'll share it with everybody just because I find it humorous. David Arquette, former WCW World Heavyweight Champion, I had to say that. That's sad. Is going to be returning to the ring tonight. He's returning to the world of professional wrestling on Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. He's got a match there. I don't know why he's doing this, but you know what? He's no more ludicrous than James Ellsworth. He's no more cringeworthy than any other super tiny guy who shows up on an indie show and thinks he's tough. So if he wants to go out there and throw fists with somebody and have a good time, more power to him. If his mainstream celebrity appeal brings a few more eyes to the world of professional wrestling, then I'm all for it. I'm not a fan of David Arquette's. I think he's ridiculous looking, but he could only be a good ambassador for the business, even if he is god-awful. Someone who is an amazing ambassador for the business is The Rock. This week, he was very vocal about his daughter, his oldest daughter, she's 16 years old, wanting to become a WWE superstar. He's proud of her and will help her follow in his footsteps. He's very proud of that. But the person who's not impressed is Elias. So Elias has been calling out The Rock on Twitter and basically challenging The Rock, making it sound like, The Rock, needs to, stay out of his ring and I would be thrilled to see the two of them get in a ring. Now, obviously, The Rock would win. I don't have a problem with that. But Elias would benefit from the rub. I think Elias is so underappreciated. And it really would be nice to see Elias get a great opportunity to really be at the top of the food chain. And putting him in there with The Rock can do that for him. By the way, I'm seeing right now my buddy John, the sports guy, formerly of Hatfield, Pennsylvania, now in Alpine, Texas. John, always great to see you. Love seeing you tune in. That's my buddy John. He's a great wrestling fan. John, I was actually wishing you were in my town this week. One of the topics we're going to talk about tonight, I'll get to in a little bit, but I would have loved to have seen you at the 350 Days documentary. I was there on the 12th, Thursday night. It was fantastic. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But moving on with the topics for tonight, Fandango injured. He's going to be out 6 months. He's got a shoulder injury. I don't know what that does for Tyler Breeze. I guess he'll stick to squash matches on, the B shows, the main event and whatever. But it's really a shame because this would be an opportunity to put Tyler Breeze into a better position. Put him on 205 Live. Let him have a Cruiserweight Championship run. He's earned it for being your lackey since being a great talent in NXT and then coming up to the main roster and pretty much doing nothing. So I would love to see him have an opportunity to actually do something of substance. Somebody who would be able to do something of substance if they come to WWE is Matt and Nick Jackson. Matt Jackson this week blew my mind. If you check out his Twitter feed, people were asking him about going to WWE and whether or not he's considering it. And he said, at this point, I'm considering everything, all my options. This is the closest I've ever felt that the Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, and potentially Cody may actually be returning to WWE, or I shouldn't say returning, I guess it is. Cody obviously was there for an extended period. Kenny was in HVW, or DSW, I apologize, DSW, when he was there, and the Young Bucks had one little short match with the Usos, when the Usos were still in NXT, but I would love to see all of those talents in WWE, but now it sounds like they're open to it as well. So we'll have to keep our eyes on that. Something else I've been keeping my eyes on all week, for anybody who tuned into the G1 special at the Cow Palace, an amazing show. I was absolutely blown away. I hope that came across. in previous commentary. At the show, Jim Ross injured, broken rib at the hands of Jay White and Juice Robinson, all the physicality in their match. If you have not seen that show, get on YouTube and check it out. Unbelievable. There is nothing that WWE has put on television in at least 2 to 3 years that comes anywhere close. Maybe the match between Shinsuke Nakamura and Sami Zayn. That might come close, but that's about it. Nothing else comes even close to almost any of the matches on the card. They were all fantastic, top to bottom. None of them were bad. The entire night was enjoyable. The entire night had tons of action, and every time you thought a match was over, it just kept going and going and going all the way up to the end of the show. A lot of people turn the shows off after, the champion wins the last match or whatever, and he says his little speech, and his next challenger shows up. But this night, the Bullet Club fractured. You had the Gorillas of Destiny with their dad, King Haku. I love that he took back the name King Haku. Members of the Bullet Club attacking Kenny, the Young Bucks, Cody, Hangman Page, Chase Owens, Marty Scurll, the whole group getting attacked and laid out by the Gorillas of Destiny, calling himself the Firing Squad. Very interesting. And in commentary afterwards, they said it was long overdue. It's not the end of the Bullet Club. They're going to solidify the Bullet Club. Should make for some interesting booking in the next few weeks, but very exciting stuff. And at that show, I felt like Kenny and Cody, we expected them to have a great match. The Young Bucks match was phenomenal. They beat Evil and Bushi. Incredible. Or I apologize, Evil and Sonata. Incredible match. There was the Dragon Lee versus Takahashi match, which resulted in Takahashi getting a severe neck injury. But the match was incredible. Amazing. But nothing topped Kenny Omega and Cody thoroughly stealing the show. If you haven't seen it, go back and watch it. I don't know how many of these matches Kenny has left in him in his career. It was so many high spots. And Cody, kudos to him. For anybody who does not like Cody Rhodes, you need to watch that match. You just had a sense of empathy for his character the whole match. He took a beating. He took a table bump outside the ring that looked like it was going to kill him. There was the crazy bump off a ladder that was, so high above the ring. All kinds of stuff in the match. Check it out if you haven't already. If you are not a New Japan Pro Wrestling fan, I don't know how you can call yourself a diehard wrestling fan, because they are easily, by far, hands down, not even a close competition, the best show in the world right now. Just my opinion. Big question came up this week about which match should main event Extreme Rules. I will tell you my opinion about that shortly, but the word on the street now is that the Roman Reigns versus Bobby Lashley match is the planned final main event match. It's still up in the air. There's been, according to the Wrestling Observer, no discussion about AJ Styles and Rusev main eventing the show, which I think is a slap in the face of the WWE Championship. It's all about Roman Reigns and Bobby Lashley. The only other match getting conversation is Seth Rollins and Dolph Ziggler. I would be much happier if that was the main event rather than Bobby Lashley and Roman Reigns. There's no championship in that match. And since you haven't taken the Universal title from Brock Lesnar and you pretty much have made that title completely worthless, then you better have a championship match that means something as your final match. And they haven't said anything about doing that. So I'm a little disappointed that it sounds like right now that is the plan for Extreme Rules. But I'll tell you who is going to put on a great show, and that's going to be Ring of Honor and New Japan Pro Wrestling. They are on their way to Madison Square Garden. The show will take place on April 6th of 2019. G1 Supercard. They are going to the house that Vincent McMahon Sr. You never thought anyone would ever book a show there outside of WWE. Well, it has happened. And WWE actually released a statement on it, really putting out there that, it's totally up to Madison Square Garden if they negotiate with outside companies and allow them to compete there. I think WWE is missing the point. You're holding SummerSlam and WrestleMania in the close proximity, and you put no shows during those huge draw weekends at that venue. If you are loyal to the venue will be loyal to you. You weren't loyal to the venue. You want to put them anywhere but there. So guess what? You lost that venue as your home base. That's been your bread and butter since the 60s, maybe even earlier. And instead, you lost it. You don't have a lock on it anymore. New Japan Pro Wrestling will be going there. Ring of Honor is going to be going there. AAA is going to go there. Heck, I wouldn't be surprised if Lucha Underground went there. I really wouldn't. So we'll have to keep our eyes on that situation. Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, House of Hardcore. If you don't stay up on their shows, please do. Pro Wrestling Guerrilla put on an amazing show the other night with Walter, the PWG champion, retaining his championship in the main event. House of Hardcore was down in Australia, and Nick Aldis was there defending the NWA Championship. We had Tommy Dreamer winning a First Blood match at the show. I mean, just great matches. You had the House of Hardcore Television Championship defended there. Willie Mack retained his title. Just great matches on the indies, and I think, diehard WWE fans don't really realize what it is that they're missing in some of these amazing other companies and the shows that they're putting on right now. They're really off the charts. One of the shows that's really going to kill it is the G1 Climax, New Japan Pro Wrestling's big tournament of the year, and that kicked off last night. Incredible matches, upsets already. Kazuchika Okada loses in the very first night of action to Jay White, the former IWGP United States champion. Just all kinds of action. Check it out. Tanahashi won last night. For those who don't know what the G1 Climax is, 2 blocks of competitors wrestling in round-robin tournaments, scoring points for every win, getting 0 for every loss, and then the 2 highest point getters, the winner from block A and the winner from block B, face off in a match to determine the winner of the G1 Climax. So it's like winning the Royal Rumble. They get a shot at a World Championship or the Intercontinental Championship whenever they choose. And so this year, I mean, it is a stacked lineup. The only person who's not in there that I feel should be is Cody, but I think they're doing that for dramatic effect, and there's a good chance that he may not be. He says it's because he's shooting a TV show, and I believe that. But I also think they don't want to put Cody in there because people would really be in favor of him winning, and I don't know if he'll still be in Ring of Honor / New Japan Pro Wrestling come January when Wrestle Kingdom is, where you cash in that championship. I think he may actually be considering returning to WWE. So if you haven't already, check out the G1 Climax results from night 1. Very cool stuff. Get ready for All In. It's going to air on Fight TV. That announcement was made this week. They have their commentary crew, which includes Sean Mooney from going way back in WWE days. So All In will be streamed on Fight TV. Make sure you have your subscription ahead of time so you know everything works and you're good to go. Should be an amazing show. And now we're getting into the part of the show where we have our deep topics. So first off, Brock Lesnar. I've tried the last couple weeks to really be objective when I report on Brock Lesnar, and here's what I mean by that. He gets so much hate from the fans. But here's the reality. I've said this before. The guy is doing everything that he's supposed to do according to the terms of his contract. The booking is WWE's fault, not Brock Lesnar's. If WWE wanted Brock Lesnar to be on television every single week, as much money as they make, they could make that happen. They don't want to. They're cheap. They really don't want to spend any money. Brock Lesnar is independently wealthy. He doesn't need the job. He's there because it's a cash grab for a good amount of money. So he shows up when he's supposed to, but they don't want him to show up. That's the issue. And now they're saying he's on bad terms with WWE because of his appearance at UFC 226. You know what? WWE keeps screwing up his booking. Now it's been confirmed this week that he will be at SummerSlam. Obviously, he dropped the Universal title. I think it's still up in the air who gets the belt. But the reality is that Brock Lesnar has been doing everything he's supposed to do, and he gets so much hate. And I pray to God, if you believe in that kind of thing, that all the fans in the arena the night of SummerSlam boo the living snot out of whoever wins the Universal Championship. If it's Roman Reigns, you already know they're going to boo. If it's Braun Strowman, you probably get a mix, because to be honest with you, I think Braun deserves it. I think he can handle it. I think he can carry it. But I think really, Brock deserves some credit for doing what he's supposed to do. And the only one who I think would get cheered is Seth Rollins. And that's partially because I'm a diehard Seth fan. But it's also because I think that's what the fans want. They want Seth Rollins to be the next Universal Champion. And I would be okay with that. I really do. I can't believe since the title was created, he hasn't held the belt yet. Kind of ridiculous when you think about how important he's been to the company. So we'll have to keep our eyes on that. But yeah, apparently Brock Lesnar on bad terms with WWE. It's part of why they didn't mention him, which was stupid. When you get all that mainstream press about UFC 226 and Brock pushing Daniel Cormier and everything else and setting up that super fight, you should have been all over that. You talk about losing money. That lost you money by not reporting on that on Monday Night Raw. So we have 3 topics left to go. We have Daniel Bryan's contract update, 350 days of documentary, and the Extreme Rules betting odds and predictions. Let's start with Daniel Bryan's contract status. He made it very clear yesterday. News broke. Daniel Bryan made the statement that he loves being in WWE, and his wife loves being in WWE. So he is fairly certain he will re-sign with WWE. That should almost put everything to bed. He's going to be back with WWE. For all the fans who are hoping and praying to see him at All In, that's not going to happen. He's going to be with WWE. And if he was trying to pull one of those things where he's like a free agent for a day, shows up at All In and then goes back, they would pay him less money. And they wouldn't give him the cushy schedule he wants. And he may shoot himself in the foot. So I think that if they just negotiate things out, we will not see him at All In, and we will see him re-sign with the company. The 350 Days documentary, if you did not know what this was, you need to find out how to get a version of the screen at home. It is an amazing documentary about all the old time, I shouldn't say all, a ton of the old timers. And, you know, there wasn't as many stories of being on the road as I kind of expected. I went there with a good friend of mine. It was actually a great experience for me personally. I got to meet Bill Apter. Took a photo with Bill Apter, and I actually ended up hanging out with him, you know, a good chunk of the night. He was fantastic. The movie was supposed to start at 7 o'clock. Didn't get started till closer to 7:30. He was like doing his stand-up routine for us, like improv, while we were waiting for the film to get started. It was fantastic. And then the show went on, and you got to see people like Bret Hart talk about the trials and tribulations of the wrestling business. And J.J. Dillon was a huge part of the documentary, and other people. Angelo Mosca, who is no longer with us. And many of the talents on the show have since passed away since this documentary was started. Wendy Richter was on the show. People like Ox Baker was hilarious. Superstar Billy Graham. It's really an interesting documentary. There is a lot there. I'll be perfectly honest with you. There were plenty of segments that I thought they could have done without. Ox Baker does like a cooking demonstration. It takes up too much time, and we get to see Wendy Richter ride a horse like 14 times. I don't understand why. And there's some people who really nobody knows, but they give great stories. So it's an interesting view, but at the same time, very entertaining. So I'm really curious to see how well it does. It seemed to be pretty well received by the people I was there with. We were at a theater in Warrington, Pennsylvania. Bill Apter was there with a host of other people. Afterwards, we did like a review of the show, and we recorded some video, put it out there. Thanks to Bill Apter for giving me a shout out during that experience, and what a great night for me personally and professionally, but hopefully for you fans, if you get a chance to see it, I hope you enjoy the film as much as I did. I thought it was very insightful, and it really shows you some of the darkness that is in the wrestling world, and the light. It wasn't all negative. There was some positives that were there as well, and that was nice to hear, because I kind of expected it all to be bad and all to be down, and it wasn't. There was some really good things on there, so keep your eyes on that. The last topic of the evening: Extreme Rules. So here's the deal. Here's how we're going to do this. I'm going to read off the betting odds, and I'll tell you where I'm at as far as my prediction. So I'll give you the odds, the match, the odds, and then my prediction. And we'll start on the list here with the Team Hell No versus the Bludgeon Brothers for the SmackDown Live Tag Team Championship. Team Hell No is a 4-5 favorite. Bludgeon Brothers a 10-11 underdog. I don't see Team Hell No walking out with the championships. I don't. I know that's what the odds say. I see the Bludgeon Brothers retaining. And the reason I say that is that we don't see The Miz in a high-profile appearance on the card. And I think The Miz will show up, and he will in some way cost Team Hell No their tag team championship, thereby leading and paving the way for Daniel Bryan versus The Miz. Now, the only thing that can screw that up, if Daniel Bryan has signed a contract extension, then I think you'll see them win the tag team championship. So I guess my prediction is kind of skewed. If he has a new contract, they win. If he doesn't have a new contract, they lose. That's the way I look at it. So my guesstimation about whether or not he has a new deal, you'll know my expectation based on who wins that match. That's just the way I see it being booked. The SmackDown Live Women's Championship match, Asuka is the 8-11 favorite over Carmella, who's a 1-1 underdog. I actually hope they hurry up and give this championship to Asuka. It's been way too long. You build this woman up as an unstoppable badass for over a year, and then you just totally destroy her character. She needs the championship to be strong, and she needs the championship because there's rumor that they're going to put her in a program with Becky Lynch to elevate Becky Lynch once again to a main event level female talent. So my prediction for this is yes, that Asuka will win the SmackDown Live Women's Championship, and I hope she has a nice long reign right up until she loses the championship to Charlotte, who is then going to face Ronda Rousey. The tables match, Sanity, the 4-7 favorite versus the New Day. I don't know how to feel about this. I know they want to establish Sanity on the brand. I'm fine with that. But the New Day, only a few months ago, we were talking about the New Day, where they were going to book them as the best tag team in history and have them have like 10 tag team championship reigns. And ever since that was spoken of, it seems like that's just been halted. Then we heard there was going to be a singles run for Big E. That didn't happen. Potentially one for Xavier Woods on 205 Live. That didn't happen. Kofi Kingston in the United States Championship picture. That did not happen. So I don't know what to make of the New Day. I don't think they know what to make of the New Day. So I think Sanity being put over the New Day is their way of covering their tails because they have nothing new to do with the New Day. So I actually agree with the odds makers here. Sanity picks up the win over the New Day. The steel cage match between Braun Strowman, the 2-5 favorite, versus Kevin Owens, the 7-4 underdog. I totally agree with this. Braun Strowman will win this match. He'll win it. He'll win it easily, and he's going to go on to SummerSlam, where he's probably going to cash in and win the Universal Championship, no matter who the champion is at the end of the night. So that is my prediction there, Braun Strowman. Grudge match, Baron Corbin, a 5-6 versus Finn Balor, also a 5-6, no favorite match, meaning they don't have a clue who's going to win. I would have Baron Corbin win if you're going to book him more as a wrestler, not as a backstage commentary guy. Get this Constable Corbin nonsense over with. Get Baron Corbin back in the ring constantly as a competitor. If that is not what you're going to do, then give it to Finn Balor. Elevate Finn Balor so he can be a legitimate challenger to the Universal title later in the year. My official prediction for this match, Finn Balor. The United States Championship going to be defended by Jeff Hardy, who is a 5-4 underdog against Shinsuke Nakamura, the 4-7 favorite. I agree, Nakamura needs this. He needs a United States Championship run. Jeff Hardy's character is not going to be tarnished one little bit losing to Shinsuke Nakamura. I see Nakamura walking out with his first bit of gold on the main roster. In the Intercontinental Championship match, Dolph Ziggler is the 4-7 favorite over Seth Rollins, who is a 5-4 underdog. My opinion here is very simple. If you want Seth Rollins to challenge for the Universal Championship at SummerSlam, you have Seth Rollins lose this match and then have him go to SummerSlam. I don't think that's going to happen. I think Seth Rollins is going to win this match, but not the championship. Dolph Ziggler will retain the title, Seth Rollins will win the match, and then he'll at least be a credible challenger to go for the championship if they change their decision. But if not, they still have a championship on Dolph Ziggler, and that could lead to a different program further down the line with he and Drew McIntyre. So the Raw Tag Team Championship, Bray Wyatt, Matt Hardy, the 4-9 favorites versus the B team, 13-8 underdogs. And here's where I break company with the odds makers. The B team walks out the Raw Tag Team Champions. I'm calling it. I want to see the B team get the gold for one very basic reason. You called them both up from NXT years ago, and they've never been given anything that matters. Give them the Raw Tag Team Championship. Make them a legitimate tag team. I'm just saying. The Raw Women's Championship match, Alexa Bliss, the 4-5 favorite over Nia Jax's 10-11 underdog. I think they are going to keep the championship on Alexa Bliss. We expect Ronda Rousey to be at ringside. She'll interject herself. It'll lead to a match with she and Alexa Bliss at SummerSlam, which I expect Ronda Rousey to win and take the Raw Women's Championship. And then if they don't run a program with Charlotte winning the SmackDown Women's Championship, I expect Charlotte to win the Royal Rumble, the Women's Royal Rumble, and challenge Ronda Rousey at WrestleMania, main eventing Mania as a women's match for the first time ever. In the grudge match, I'm putting this not on last in my prediction. Roman Reigns, the 8-11 favorite versus Bobby Lashley, the 1-1 underdog. And here's the thing. If they think that Brock Lesnar is leaving for good, they'll put Roman Reigns over Bobby Lashley because they want Roman Reigns to take the title from Brock Lesnar. If there is any chance that Brock Lesnar comes back for more than one match, Bobby Lashley wins. Because Bobby Lashley will face Brock Lesnar, and then Roman Reigns can face him later. It gets Roman Reigns out of the title picture for a little while. Bobby Lashley's the fresh face going against Brock. He could take the Universal title. It'll be something new. It'll make people happy that Roman Reigns isn't the guy, and then they'll give the title to Reigns in a match future down the road against Bobby Lashley anyways. But I personally think that Bobby Lashley is going to win this match. There you go. I said it again. They've been screwing with you guys over Roman Reigns for months. I think they continue the screw job here and make Bobby Lashley the winner. And here's why. Because when he wins, and then they put Roman Reigns in the championship match at SummerSlam anyways, Bobby Lashley, one thing he is not good at anymore is being a babyface. He can get angry that he beat Reigns and didn't get the championship match, and then he can challenge Roman Reigns for the Universal title later after having beaten him in the grudge match here at Extreme Rules. And in what I consider to be the main event of the show, AJ Styles, the 2-9 favorite over Rusev, the 3-1 underdog for the WWE Championship. And I predict that AJ Styles will retain the title, though I will tell you, if I was booking it, I would give the championship to Rusev. I think he has been in the company long enough. I think he deserves the championship. And I think it's time for Rusev to get a run with the gold. Unfortunately, I don't see that happening in any way, shape, or form. John, the sports guy, just wanted to say to you what I was getting at earlier. I really wish you were here for that 350 Days documentary. I would have met up with you at the theater. It was a great time. If you haven't seen it, check it out. That goes for everybody. Tonight has been a lot of fun with you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget, tune in every week. If nothing else, we always have a show on Saturday nights where we go live. But tune in every week to every episode. If you are a YouTube user, enable notifications. Your other streaming services, enable notifications so you always know when we're on. More importantly, check out our editorial articles we put up at Infro's Corner, right off FroWrestling.com, where I give you all these stories that my reflections and my thoughts on the world of professional wrestling, hot button topics. Last week we had one about the Universal title, one about the booking of Brock Lesnar. We've had other topics of discussion, and I hope you enjoy all of those. If you do, please give me some comments. Thank you to those who have been giving comments. I truly appreciate that. But that's all the time we have for this episode. Check back with me next time. We'll run down all the latest wrestling news and rumors. Special thanks, as always, out to our buddies over at bensound.com and purpleplanet.com for producing all our music and sound effects. Today's podcast is sponsored in part by Beazle Games. Bringing a new friend to family game night is easy with sketchy people. Showcase your artistic side by going to the frowrestling.com and clicking the icon in the middle of the screen to pick up your copy today. And to alleyrepair.com. Contact Alley Repair today for servicing of all your classic skee-ball, pinball, and arcade game needs. If you're looking for your next career move, you're considering college or university life, or you just need some formal training for your next career decision, go to our other website at www.frolifeplanning.com for all your higher education needs. As Fro Life Educational Planning is for today, for tomorrow, and for life with Fro Life. I'm Fred Froelich, better known as Mr. Fro. I want to thank you so much for taking a few moments with us this evening. Thank you for tuning in. If you're looking for more wrestling news and rumors, go to www.tsj101sports.com for the latest articles on the world of professional wrestling. And don't forget to check out Infro's Corner for my own articles. And I will talk to y'all later in the week. Thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate it. Until next time, take care, everybody. Have a great night.